Hi, Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Friday, September 23rd, still desperately waiting for the arrival of fall. Let's talk about medical marijuana. It's making some news today. There have been legal filings today, and the lawsuit that's seeking to strike the Medical Marijuana Initiated Act from the ballot. The remaining issue, the ballot title has been approved by the Supreme Court, but the remaining issue is whether the signatures are sufficient. A lawsuit was filed challenging those signatures. Both the Secretary of State's office and the sponsors of that initiated act filed proposed findings of fact today that say the signatures were sufficient. There's some interesting wrinkles in this. For a time, the law, according to a court ruling, didn't require some new rules for paid canvassers, and the Supreme Court reinstated that law. That's a part of the problem at issue here. But there's not much doubt that they submitted enough petitions. The question is whether they were voluntary canvassers when they did it, paid canvassers, and which rules apply. A special master is going to issue his feelings on it next week, and then the Supreme Court will make the final decision. Other marijuana news includes the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce has just gone on a tear against marijuana. It circulated a memo to its members raising all sorts of questions about potential workplace consequences of the use of medical marijuana, an inability of landlords to discriminate against people who take medical marijuana. What the amendment does is no more than provide protection to people who use medical marijuana than to people who use legitimate prescription medicine. There's protections against misuse of drugs in the workplace. And the Chamber of Commerce has also begun a really scurrilous campaign that's suggesting these amendments will lead to purchase or use of marijuana candy by children. Well, the problem with that is number one, children can't buy medical marijuana. Number two, the marijuana may not be sold in an ingestible form unless both the regulatory agency that will oversee medical marijuana and the legislature itself approve those rules. And finally, they're relying on an experience in Colorado, which has legalized marijuana for all purposes, recreational and otherwise, and even there you've got to be 21 to buy it. But it's a scare tactic, and there's going to be a lot more of it before it's over with. I think they're fighting for the pharmaceutical industry. It's hard to figure what explains this level of opposition otherwise. Elsewhere in the news, Governor Asa Hutchinson said yesterday that he wants a report on ways to be sure the state can hold in its Medicaid costs over the next 5 years. 317,000 more people now have health insurance coverage thanks to Obamacare and related actions. That troubles the governor somewhat. He wants to hold down Arkansas's exposure. Inevitably, this likely means a reduction of the number of people covered by new restrictions or more costs for the people who are covered, some of whom can barely afford what they have now. But that's the likelihood of the shape of things to come. Criminal investigation is underway in Cross County. A woman there was killed and then by a man who then apparently shot himself. The interesting wrinkle in this murder-suicide is that the woman is a key witness, as are her brothers, in an ongoing federal investigation of a former district judge in Wynne, Joseph Beckman, who supposedly traded favors as a district court judge to men who traded him sexual favors of a sort, sometimes nude photographs. The death is not directly tied to that case yet, but it's interesting that a key witness would be killed in this fashion. Robert Ruth, the Conway physician earlier charged with rape of 2 women as a family practice physician in Conway, now faces 11 more charges of rape or sexual assault by women, a growing number of allegations that he traded drugs to women in return for sexual favors. Speaking of drugs, Attorney General Leslie Rutledge finally filed a lawsuit that seems to be somewhat on the side of consumers, a rare action by the Republican Attorney General. She's joined 35 other states, so she has lots of cover in suing a drug maker that seems to have taken actions to prevent competition with cheaper generics for a drug that's prescribed for people who have opioid addiction. So, tip of the hat to her on one rare occasion, perhaps. Lachie Can, a nutritional supplement company in Harrison, announced today that it's going to add 100 jobs and expand with $6 million in new facilities in Harrison. They're going to get some corporate welfare to do this. They say they make a really great supplement for people who work out. I don't think I'll find out about that. Great reading and Think Progress today. You'll find the link on Arkansas Blog. It's about how freeway building and suburbanization ripped up communities, damaged the downtown, and otherwise created a racial and cultural divide in Charlotte, North Carolina, an issue that a lot of people think contributes what led to the huge protests and the police shooting there this week. Of course, there are parallels in Little Rock where we continue on our path of destructive freeway building and suburbanization that does split up communities. We've already done here, and we're about to do it some more. It's a lesson we ought to take a look at. And finally, the Traveler at the University of Arkansas, the student newspaper, has more details on the student government's decision not to pass a resolution expressing unhappiness about display of the Confederate flag at the big motorcycle rally that's underway in Fayetteville this week. It seems that several student senators, number one, were afraid that they might offend some rich contributors to the university. They took a stand against the rebel flag. And two, a lot of those people said, hey, this is about my Southern heritage. Well, let me say this about Southern heritage. I'm the great-grandson of a Civil War veteran, a hardscrabble former for North Louisiana who fought for the rebels in the Civil War. Had some kin up in Ohio who were on the other side of the battle. I know what heritage is about, and the heritage that rebel flag stands for isn't something I particularly want to wave around in public today. But that's me. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back next week.